It's time for the Bleed Los Podcast with your hosts, Alonso and Juan, Alicia Del Valle, and the babyface gimmick in the sky, Roger.
It's down to the last four teams. BetOnline has been your tournament bracket headquarters all March long, and now that we're almost down to the finals, we've still got a lot more in store. MLB is here and NBA, NHL playoffs are around the corner. As always, BetOnline is the #1 source for your summer sports wagering. Head to BetOnline today to stay updated on all the action, and remember to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here.
And we are back with another episode of the Bleed Los podcast, another weekly rewind edition. Every Monday, we will be having this throughout the 2024 season, recapping the Dodgers pretty much week from Monday to Monday. So obviously the Dodgers, they wrapped up their homestand, sweeping the San Francisco Giants, and then they head out on the road, their first, I would say, official road trip of the 2024 season. I kind of put the Seoul Korea trip in its own category. But then they went up to Wrigley Field and it was cold, rainy, windy, not good for baseball weather. And the Dodgers end up losing their first series up there in Chicago, dropping the rubber match game today, getting blown out, had to wait almost 3 hours between that rain delay. And then they ultimately, dropped the game, losing, I believe, 8-1. But it was a okay week. They go into now where they're going to still stay on their road trip, going to Minnesota to face the Twins before they have an off day and return home to host the San Diego Padres. But Roger, honestly, we started off the week on a high note, sweeping the Giants, and then we kind of ended it on a low point, losing the series in Wrigley. What are your takeaways from, the last two series, especially the one in Wrigley, where, it just does. I kind of looked at when the weather, I sent you guys that off air, like how cold it was going to be. I didn't realize it was going to be this rainy.
Yeah, just, one of those rainy weekends in Chicago that wasn't very good for baseball. Well, especially today's game, right? That rain delay, it kind of seemed odd, right? Like, it starts raining in the second, third inning, and then Cubs already had the lead, so they were trying to get this thing to 5, get it across to 5, and kind of so they could call it, but it kind of just developed a little bit too slow. And it is what it is. They're gonna drop series. But when you look back at kind of, there's things obviously in this series that you look back. They gave up, I think, a lot of runs, especially like today, and I think in that first game, right, they Cubs, they scored a lot of runs on them. So things that they gotta, work on, especially today, it was Gavin Stone. We were kind of talking about this off the air. Like, he's not looking as sharp, right, as he was in spring. His command was off today. It looked like when he had a chance to, get the strikeouts or whatever, he ends up walking guys and stuff like that. So Stone is something to keep an eye on going forward, especially right with the emergence of Walker Buehler possibly coming back pretty soon.
Yeah, I think before we kind of highlight, the Giants series, obviously there's a lot of takeaways with that one. They did sweep the Giants. Pretty much they fired on all levels. But since the Chicago series is, freshly finished, we have a lot more instant reactions to that. And I think the biggest takeaway is that just the two young guns just weren't, firing on all cylinders. Gavin Stone, I think last year he struggled because all of his pitches just got hit hard. I think this start in particular was just that he couldn't locate and he didn't have command. And if they weren't eating at his changeup, which is his go-to out pitch, then he's going to have a hard time getting around batters because he's not going to blow anybody away. He throws around 93, 94 miles per hour. We've seen him get up to 97, but it's not regular. And then Bobby Miller just kind of, I jinxed it. I feel like a lot of people on Dodgers Twitter did jinx it, saying, yeah, he is him. Like, that first inning, he got 3 guys out, all on strikeouts, all on different pitches. And I don't know what happened in the second inning where he just imploded. He was getting barreled up, walking command. Maybe it was kind of getting to him. We all do forget he is still a sophomore pitcher. He is very young, so he kind of has to, adapt to that. But, he looked really sharp in that first inning. Hopefully in his next start against the Twins, he can kind of control some of those emotions, build off of whatever went wrong in that second and inning of game one. But I think that's the big thing here is that their pitching just wasn't there and it didn't get them off to a good start. And then the offense kind of had to play catch up, and you can't win ball games that way every single day. I think the Dodgers are averaging probably before today's loss where, they almost put up a donut on the scoreboard. They were averaging like 7 runs in their losses, which just means that their pitching staff is getting obliterated in games that they lose. So that's something that can't go on for a full 162.
Yeah, and I almost forgot about that first start. It was a Bobby Miller start, and he only ends up, not getting out of the second inning. But yeah, I mean, they came back in that game. They were able to make it a game after that start. And yeah, I don't really know what kind of went wrong with him. It kind of just he lost whatever he had in that first inning. He just completely lost it, and then it was his birthday. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the adrenaline, kind of his birthday. But he ends up just getting into that second inning, and he threw a lot of pitches. Right, I think he was like into 40 or some odd pitches. So. I mean, this whole weekend series, it could have gotten pretty ugly. In that second game with Yamamoto, right? He ends up loading the bases in that first inning, and he's able to get out of it. Then second inning, they got loaded again, but some of the defensive miscues behind him again that helped, getting the bases loaded, but he got out of it. And a great start overall. 5 innings scoreless, so that was great to see from Yamamoto. But overall, the weekend series. Not the best one for the Dodgers.
Yeah, honestly, you bring up a good point with Yamamoto where, in that first inning, I was like, all right, I'm kind of getting, flashbacks to Korea where he kind of imploded in that first inning and then he ended up getting out of it. Yes, some of the calls went his way from the home plate umpire, but that's just baseball. And then in the second inning, I was getting deja vu all over again, except this time, instead of really him getting into trouble, it was his kind of team behind him, failing him and getting in. And then he ended up getting out of that. He ended up settling in a groove, retiring, I think, like 7 or 8 in a row, and then ended the start with 5 innings. I was a little bit surprised that they only pushed him 5 innings because he only had 80 pitches. And kind of with the way things went in game one with Miller, I thought maybe they were going to let Yamamoto go at least one more inning just to save the bullpen. But they didn't. Another interesting tidbit for Yamamoto, it sounds like they're still only going to let him pitch, like once per week, every 6 days, which kind of points to maybe when a certain arm comes back, do they go with a 6-man rotation? I know we've been writing about it on DodgersBeat.com. I know throughout all winter, a lot of people were talking about, hey, the Dodgers have pitching depth. Once they get all their arms healthy, doesn't it benefit them to go to a 6-man rotation? So I think it's interesting that they're going to utilize the off days. They're going to give him extended rest. I know they pushed back the rotation to start the season, when they shifted around to give him an extra day of rest and give Bobby Miller an extra day of rest. So it's kind of interesting to see that they're doing this already so early in the year. Does that get you worried at all? Or are you kind of just saying, yeah, this is the plan that Dodgers have. They're just trying to get through the full 162. Let's give these guys rest when we can.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna do that. Especially with a couple off days. They had one last week. They'll have one again this Thursday. So kind of utilizing those days, and kind of pushing it. But like you said, they're gonna get to a point where they're gonna have to figure out something like, are we gonna go with that 6-man or what are we gonna do? And and I think it all depends on kind of also, like I said, like we mentioned with Gavin Stone, how is he gonna look in his next start? If he kind of returns to form, okay, that there's that option still. If he struggles again, then they're probably gonna have to make a move and kind of just maybe it's 5 and they bring in Walker to fill that spot.
Yeah, and before we get on to Walker, obviously the loss of, these 2 games in Chicago, it stings a little bit, but let's kind of talk about the Giants series a little bit. There's a lot of good takeaways right there. That first game, Teoscar Hernandez is really making his impact in this lineup. Kind of one, I would say he's the most locked in besides like Mookie Betts and Ohtani now, who is starting to heat up a lot. But I think I was really impressed with the 2 starting pitchers in those first couple games. And that was James Paxton, kind of the veteran, getting in and out of trouble, and going 5 shutout innings. Dave Roberts let him go out there. And he looked pretty good, minus some command issues, walking a couple batters. And then Tyler Glasnow later in the series as well, where Roberts let him, get up to 100 pitches and then get out of a jam himself there too. And I think that's the thing. If you're going to extend their rest, you need your starters to go deeper into games, especially if you're going to be throwing in a bullpen game once a week, or if you're going to be counting on them more with the younger starters like Gavin Stone. Yamamoto hasn't gone into the 6th inning yet. So I thought it was a really good thing to see that these guys were able to battle, and then hopefully in their next start they go a little bit deeper in the game as well.
Yeah, the Giants series, was pretty good. That obviously they ended up sweeping, and I liked seeing Glasnow go out there when he ran a little bit of trouble, and they let him go in there and finish it off. Same thing with Paxton. So that's good to see from those guys. Those veterans they know, hey, I'm in a bit of trouble here, but they're able to figure it out and get out of it. So that's good to see there. But pretty much, Dodgers pretty much took care of the Giants that entire series. So it's kind of, I didn't know what to expect from that series, right? Coming in, so early, kind of what the Giants have done. Obviously, the Giants aren't at their full strength yet, pitching wise, but it was good to go in there and always, sweep the Giants.
Yeah. And then kind of before we get to Walker Buehler, we talked about it during the live. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, he hit his first Dodgers home run that series, the final at bat. Whole issues with the fan that caught it, the whole story by The Athletic by Sam Blum, and then kind of everybody on social media saying that the Dodgers fan kind of got ripped off. We talked about it extensively on the live with Juan Toribio the other day. There's been a lot of updates in this story. Roger, do you have any clarity about, what has been done for the fan? I know there's some type of on-field access or something like that.
Yeah, that's what they're reporting. They're saying that they haven't said when. I'm assuming it's probably going to be next homestand. They're going to have an on-field experience. So I would assume they're going to get to come back. Guessing probably they'll get to maybe talk with Shohei before the game, get a picture or whatever. That's kind of, I heard some of the interviews with the girl that got the ball. That's kind of what they wanted. That was their whole, they wanted to just meet him and kind of take a picture, kind of, hey, that'd be really cool if we can do that. And so hopefully they'll get to do that on, whenever it's hopefully the next homestand, and kind of just put that, let that to rest, and, they get their moment with Shohei, and everybody moves on, happily. Like I said, a lot of people were saying oh, they didn't get enough. They didn't get enough stuff. They didn't for the value, but all they wanted, honestly, is kind of to meet them and get a picture.
Yeah. And I think, to your credit, you talked about the stuff that they did get in time is going to be probably more valuable than that baseball by itself, because if it was going to go back to Ohtani regardless, I saw a lot of other people, putting that out there where, Ohtani doesn't really sign stuff for fans. Like when he's walking through, especially at spring training, it would be a rare sight to see him, go over and sign some baseballs, sign some caps. I was reading an article about, from one of the Fanatics, where they get all their memorabilia. And he was saying, there isn't any Shohei Ohtani signed baseball caps anywhere on the market. That's just not available. So just them having those two caps by themselves is extremely valuable. The bat, I believe, was game used. Those are extremely rare. And then the baseballs, we talked about the baseballs a little bit and how just a signed foul ball was going for almost $20,000. So I understand some of the other fans' frustration saying, hey, they did get ripped off. I think the whole issue that I kind of it made it look worse was when they just separated, the wife and the husband. That's probably the biggest thing. But, in the moment with everything that's going on and the impact that Ohtani and that ball was going to have, Dodger security kind of had to act fast. So I guess in the moment, I guess you just don't think it fully. But Steve Webb wrote an article, he was just saying it's the easiest PR thing that the Dodgers can do to fix this. And then that's just inviting these people back. And I'm glad the Dodgers, picked up on that, because I don't think they need any more Shohei controversy stories to follow them throughout the season. So to stick it in the bud right away and then invite these fans back for the on-field experience is probably the 100% right way to go.
Yeah. And, like I said, it sounds like that's all they want. And they got that memorabilia, which, like you mentioned, I think, depending on, how long he plays, his career, everything that goes after, when he retires, if he goes into the Hall of Fame, if he goes as in a Dodger, if you got this stuff of Shohei Ohtani, that stuff's going to be worth, quite a bit of money. It's cool to have those pieces, especially like you mentioned. I didn't know that if there's not a lot of hats that are signed by him.
Yeah.
That's cool to have. Somebody's going to pay you money for that. So, on a side note, I have a ball, and I think it's the only ball in its existence, right? It's a Walker Buehler ball. And I know a lot of people have Walker Buehler signed balls, but I have a ball that has his name, Walker Buehler, and then he wrote beneath that, Walker effing Buehler. I think it's the only ball in existence because I know a lot of people at that same place where I got that ball. People try to get him to sign that on there. He said, nope, can't do it. So it might be the only one. So I don't know if anybody's ever tried, but to my knowledge, it's the only one of his existence. So we'll see how Walker's career plays out because, I might have something there.
Yeah, so that's a good way to pivot to our next, segment here, and that is Walker Buehler himself. He did make his second rehab outing the other day on Saturday, and everything went really well, a little bit better than his first rehab start. So to kind of just put the stats into perspective, he went 4 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 0 walks, 0 earned runs, and 6 strikeouts. I think the biggest takeaway from this is that they were saying he was in the 93 to 95 mile per hour range, topping out at around 96 miles per hour. And that's kind of exactly how he was in 2021, which was arguably his career year where he really settled down and became, a true ace, especially the ace of the Dodgers that season. So I think if Buehler can come back and be somewhat similar to that and have these numbers, I think the Dodgers are going to be just fine to slot him in back into the rotation. I think it's going to be really interesting to see these next 2 starts, and I want to see the length in between starts. Right now, it's been, I think, every Saturday, so that's about a 6-day rest period. Obviously, we already mentioned the Dodgers, if they do activate him and bring him on, if they go with a 6-man rotation, that's kind of going to be the breakup in there. But if they don't and they decide to go, with the normal, 4 or 5-day rest, that's going to be interesting to see how they go about it with Buehler. But everything I've just told you there, are you encouraged about how Buehler is progressing in his rehab?
Yeah, now it looks like this go around. He pitched pretty good in that first one, but he ended up giving up like a late home run, so he wasn't happy about that. This one was just as good, and it's encouraging to see him out there competing because Walker Buehler, he just doesn't want to be out there and kind of just be like a guy. He wants to go out there and show that this guy had ace type stuff. He wants to be kind of that guy, right? He wants to be an elite pitcher, and that's kind of what we're going to get from Walker Buehler. I believe when he comes back, he wants to be at the top of his game. So maybe maybe 1 or 2 rehab starts, maybe 1. I know Dave Roberts had mentioned they might get him in a game at Rancho. So if he goes again, Friday or Saturday, even Sunday, Rancho's at home. So he could be in Rancho Cucamonga this coming weekend.
Yeah, so I think the other thing we have to forget too is that Buehler is a free agent after this year. So I think he is really dying to get into some action because not only is he trying to, come back from his second career Tommy John surgery, he's been out for for more than a whole season, and he's a pending free agent. He wants to prove his value again because he wants to get a contract at the end of the season. And obviously the Dodgers haven't reached out for him for an extension yet, or else they would have already come into an agreement. So the quicker he gets onto the field and the better that he plays, that bodes well for him and his future. And I like the idea of Buehler, just slotting right back into the rotation at that 5th spot. Just let him keep building up in innings. And then hopefully by October, he's fully back to that 2021 or 2020 self. Even if he's half that, the Dodgers would definitely take that over. No offense to then Gavin Stone, because obviously Gavin Stone's shown great strides and improvement, but I'm still going to take Walker Buehler, 10 out of 10 times in the rotation. So the only thing I'm interested about is that when he is activated, Dave Roberts did say around 4 to 5 rehab starts. I think if the next one goes really well, maybe they give him 1 more, because I still think they're trying to push him at least until early May, and then he can make a debut. I don't think they're going to want to make his debut on the road. I think they're going to want to bring him at a debut at Dodger Stadium just to get him more comfortable. But it'll be really up to them. It'll be really up to Buehler and see how he feels. Because if he's feeling fine and he makes his 3 rehab starts and he says, I'm fine, the doctors say he's fine, and the Dodgers, they say he's fine, he may just make a start, after 5 days from that last rehab start, no matter where it's at, whether it's at Dodger Stadium or if it's on the road. So I'm just really encouraged to see that he's actually healthy, though.
Yeah, I think once it's go time for him, I don't really see them like maybe holding him back for Dodger Stadium. I think if he's ready to go, it's going to be wherever it lines up, right? If it's Dodgers or it's on the road, just to get him back out there and we'll see. I mean, obviously, I think there's still going to be an innings limit on him, throughout the year, and kind of keep it really, really low and for him, so it's not they don't overtax him, obviously. But yeah, I think it's very encouraging what we've seen and very exciting that this guy's coming back probably in a couple of weeks at the most.
Yeah, I think we brought it up on the live with Toribio. The Dodgers transaction page has just been kind of all over the place now. This early in the season with the bullpen management, DFAing guys, signing guys, releasing guys, re-signing guys, and then recently they're trading for guys as well. They did say, Dave Roberts did mention that Phillies, reliever Connor Brogdon, who they just acquired yesterday, will be added to the 40-man and onto the active roster for this Twin Series. But in order for that to happen, another move has to be made. I'm interested to see who's going to be biting the bullet on that one. Luckily for the Dodgers, I don't think we have an update on Lamet yet, but they've kind of been able to keep these guys that they either had to DFA or release. They re-signed Matt Gage. So hope maybe Lamet can be DFA'd or he already was DFA'd, but hopefully maybe he can stay in the organization in some capacity. Maybe they re-signed to a minor league deal similar to what Gage did. Or if he just maybe clears waivers and just gets outrighted straight to AAA. That'll be interesting to see what they do there. But these aren't the only guys that are coming back. Brusdar Gratterall, they're aiming for a May return. Blake Trinan is aiming for a May return. Those are 2 guys that you have to add back to the active roster. So the Dodgers are going to be making moves in their bullpen and their pitching staff in these next 2 to 3 weeks. And some guys are just going to not cut it. And I'm interested to see where they go with all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably maybe the obvious choice maybe for this next, would be maybe Grove, right? We're kind of surprised that Grove wasn't, sent down last week. But yeah, I mean, looking through the roster, I mean, probably going to be him or probably Varland, right? But Varland just came up. So we'll see. It's definitely probably going to be one of those guys to make a spot for Bogdan.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that it's not Grove because I feel like he's just going to stay. I'm going to say it's going to be Farland. So, I know why the Dodgers called him up for today's game. They originally wanted him to fill in that Ryan Yarbrough role, which he ended up going into today. Varland kind of got thrown into, the blistering cold rain there and kind of lost control and then set Yarbrough up for that inning when the game resumed play. So I imagine they just, once they started getting off to that, 6-0 deficit, they said, let's just throw this guy out here. Let's hopefully get this game through. And then let's go on our road series, continue our road series to Minnesota. So yeah, it will be interesting to see who they DFA, release, or send down for the Connor Brogdon. And then just to stay up to date on all this, because I know it's a lot, we have been pretty, active on DodgersBeat.com. We've been updating pretty much on all these moves. So if you want more in-depth analysis on all of this stuff, I did write a piece on Connor Brogdon, which could be a key thing down the line. He did show a lot of life in the Phillies bullpen in 2022. So we'll see what happens with that. But going from the website to the YouTube page on the Bleed Lows podcast, Roger, you were there at the RC Quakes. They had their media day. You interviewed a couple players. And if you haven't noticed, the minor league season has fully begun. All their opening days have come and gone. They're all playing games right now. But how was that media day? And then kind of what was a player standout story? Like everything that you experienced there with all those players.
Yeah, well, it was the first one that I had gone to for the Quakes media day, and so I didn't know kind of what to expect. But it's obviously quite different than say a Dodgers media day or a Fan Fest, and a minor league, especially low A media day. But I mean, it's cool. They make the players available to you. They're there, taking their pictures for their stuff that they're doing at the Quakes, their website and their promotional stuff. So they're all taking their pictures and then talking to the PR guy. He pretty much, hey, who do you want to talk to? I'll send them over. So I got their manager, John Shoemaker. Obviously, if anybody knows that, he's legend in the game and in the system. He's been there for a while. Then I pretty much I kind of wanted the guys that everybody's talking about, right? Like, so I told him, hey, send me DePaula and Kendall Grove, those guys. And I saw Zaire Hope. Speaking of that guy, I mean, that kid he really impressed me. Just his attitude, just I mean, the guy's like a happy dude. Like you're just talking to him, like he's just really happy. Like, so, and it's impressive to see that kind of these guys have a good head on their shoulders already at such a young age. Going into a season, he was telling me about how the story of when he got traded, how he heard the news and all that, and kind of just going into the season. And and if you're following up with the Quakes, the guy hit 3 home runs over this weekend. So
yeah, it's
good to see this young talent. A lot of expectations for these guys. They're coming through. Especially by the end of the year. Maybe if you haven't heard a lot of these guys, we're going to be hearing a lot about these guys that going on to the next level. I mean, I don't think most of these guys will probably last that entire season in low A. They'll probably be up in high in a couple months. So it's good to see that progression of they're taking that young talent, and then just as they continue to move through the system.
Yeah, I always appreciate kind of these minor league interviews because these are kind of guys that are, they're fighting for their life. And I like that you brought up, when these guys get traded, because, when they get drafted, they're told, hey, you're this guy, like we want you to be on this team long term in the future and all that. And then that same person or that same group of people, they'll trade you or release you the very next day, just because that's the business of baseball. So yeah, it's like a huge shout out to everybody that covers these minor league games. I know you saw one that I like, Tim Rogers. He was definitely out there, interviewing players. So if anyone is familiar with our page, they're definitely familiar with Tim over there. I know you guys got to talk while you were there as well.
Yeah. And Tim's been doing this for a while. So like he was able to pull, guys that he's seen from years before, they might have been injured, they're coming back. So he's very connected with the minor league system. So, you guys want more information on minor leagues, I definitely, recommend following Tim Rogers in 2080. He, like I said, he knows the minor leagues like very thoroughly. So it was good to see him, and he was kind of telling me, oh yeah, this guy, he had Tommy John last year, and they're kind of, expecting. So it was good to talk to him, and kind of he connected me with, some of the missing dots.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and then honestly, if you haven't gotten to check out those, those videos, they are all up on our YouTube page. So be sure to look at all those interviews. My personal favorite, you did interview Delaware native, the Geloff brother. I believe this one's what, Zach, right? Jake. Yeah. So yeah. I like that one just because, not many baseball players come from Delaware. So good to hear that he's a Dewey guy. I commented on the video. So that's interesting there as well. So, but definitely be sure to check out all those videos, Roger interviewing all these players. And that brings us to pretty much the last segment of the episode where we have the next series of the week. Obviously, they are continuing their road trip. They're heading to Minnesota. Continue with the cold weather. They're going to continue playing, and then they get an off day on Thursday, and then they come back home to host the San Diego Padres at Dodger Stadium. So kind of looking at the outlook with the road series, hopefully we're getting away from, losing our first series in Chicago, getting a series win in Minnesota. The pitching matchups are lining up that they should be that way. We're getting James Paxton, Tyler Glass now, and Bobby Miller. So how are you feeling, Roger, about them continuing the road trip, but continuing with the cold weather in Minnesota?
Yeah, and it always amazes me that the Minnesota is not a dome, right? Like I remember when they built that stadium, like why would you not put a dome in a place that like snows like I don't know 50-60% of the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's gonna. I haven't checked the weather. Is it gonna be cold out there during this 3-game
I
set?
imagine it's early April. It's pretty close to Chicago in that general area in terms of states. And yeah, I feel like the Dodgers have just gotten really unlucky. It seems like in April they're always going on a series up north, whether it's in Chicago. I think wasn't it the year when Kershaw almost threw that perfect game? Yeah, that was against the Twins as well in like the first month of the season. I think it was like his first start. And yeah, it's not good baseball weather. It's definitely not good baseball weather for the Dodgers, who are just used to, even here on the East Coast in Delaware, it's not as cold as it is up there where they're playing baseball in 45-degree weather, rain, snow. So I'm not sure what I'm going to expect from this series. As long as it's not raining, I think it'll be fine. I think the rain was a big factor in the Cubs series, though.
Yeah, I was kind of looking over the matchup. So they have is this guy Bailey Uber. I don't know how much he's pitched, but he has a 54 ERA. So hopefully that bodes well for the Dodgers. And then the second game, it's Louis Varland. So Gus Varland's brother. So I don't know if Gus is going to be there to see that. If they make a move tomorrow and they send Gus back, so maybe they keep him so he can see that. And so we'll see. And then the last game is I believe I saw it, Chris Paddock. Right, so I've seen Chris Paddock for a while since his pod. I don't know if they've faced him. Did he go? He went to the Mets, right? Too, I think after, right?
Nope, he went
went to Minnesota. Okay, so
went straight to Minnesota.
Yeah, so I don't think they faced him since then, right? So
no, he's been battling a lot of injuries since the move over there. So this is the first time he's actually in the rotation, even since the trade. I think once he was traded there, they moved him to the bullpen, and they've had some starting rotation issues. They lost Sonny Gray, and now they're inserting Chris Paddock this year. So it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers. He obviously has probably changed since the 2020 season. So it'll be interesting to see how the Dodgers attack him.
Yeah, so I mean, the Twins are 3-4 right now in a I think a bad AL Central. I mean, I'd kind of expect the Dodgers to sweep, right? They should sweep this series 3 games, but always, if they win the series 2 out of 3, you'll take that. So, but yeah, I'm kind of looking at they should be able to sweep this series.
Yeah, I'm gonna say just 2 out of 3 for this one, just to kind of, I don't know, just because it's so early in the season. A lot of players are still finding their groove. But when I look at the pitching matchups that they're going against, the Minnesota lineup isn't as strong. I have an article coming out tomorrow or pretty much by the time this episode drops, kind of highlighting some of the key players missing for the Twins. And the biggest one is Royce Lewis, who just seems to never be able to stay healthy. And he is pretty much an intimidating force in their lineup. They're without him. So I would say, looking at the pitching rotation and the way it's set, they should sweep the series easily. You're pretty much setting out your veteran arm and then your 2 aces. So you should come away at least with 2 victories. And then I would say hopefully a sweep. And then obviously we get to host the Padres following that, coming back home after the Thursday off day for a 3-game weekend series. So it'll be interesting to see the intensity and all that with San Diego coming over here. But in that series, I'm just hoping, since they return home, I'm the optimist guy. So I'll just say 2 out of 3 for that one, since we don't really know the pitching probables yet. We don't know if they're going to throw a bullpen game in between there. It'll be it seems like at the beginning of the part of the season, they're taking things day by day.
So the Padres, they're at home. The Cubs are coming to see them. So let's see if the Cubs actually, they put up a fight against the Dodgers this weekend, right? We had the Cody Bellinger had a home run today, right? And then Michael Busch kind of had a big series as well, right? It's kind of his revenge series, as people were calling it. But let's see how they play against the Padres, right? If they go out there and and try and play them just as good as they did the Dodgers. And then they come to LA. Same thing. I'm expecting 2 out of 3, but I'd love to see a sweep of the Padres and kind of just continue to push them back in that NL West, push them down and down. So 2 out of 3, but love to see a sweep.
Yeah, I think the big thing of this is that I think if they get good starting pitching, they'll be fine because it looks like the offense is pretty much locked in. Shohei Ohtani got really locked in over this series in Wrigley, raising his OPS pretty much, I think, over 900 now. He hit another home run. He had that triple today, the last game of the series. So I'm hoping that, they can ride that wave of him getting hot, the offense staying hot, and then hopefully getting some more dependable starting pitching. We know what the top 3 guys are going to do. Now we just need to see the bottom of the order take suit as well. So,
and same thing with that top. Like we had seen Mookie. Mookie's kind of I mean we don't expect him to hit 500-600 like he's hitting. So he's kind of settling down a little bit. Freddie, I didn't really see a big weekend from Freddie either, right? So and then kind of Shohei now kind of stepping it up now. Imagine when those 3 guys are just going off. Like, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy to get those guys just all on the same page. So looking forward to that. And, like you mentioned, that bottom of that order, James Outman's been struggling, Lux. Yeah, you got to get those guys going, turn that lineup over, get those guys, if those guys get on, and then you got Mookie coming up, Shohei, so a chance to get in some runs right there, but those guys got to get on base.
Yeah, and so it'll be an interesting, wrap up to the road trip and then coming back home against the Padres. But before we say goodbye to everyone here on this episode, we obviously mentioned the episodes for the interviews that Roger did with the RC Quakes, interviewing a bunch of minor league guys that are already beginning their season. But we did just drop an episode with Fox co-host of the Flippin' Bats podcast with Ben Verlander, Alex Curry, which that one is pretty much up right now, ready to be viewed. It was great to have her on, talk about all her picks. You guys can find that pretty much on YouTube, anywhere else you get the podcast. But if you go to the YouTube side of things, we're getting really close to 5,000 subscribers on the YouTube. Roger, we have a giveaway, don't we, to when we get to 5,000, right?
Yeah, we have Fernando Valenzuela bobblehead. He's in the throwing motion bobblehead. So that, yeah, once we get to 5,000, we're, I'd say, roughly 400-ish away. So just go. All you got to do is just go subscribe, and then we'll take all the subscribers and kind of just pick somebody randomly from there. So, it's not hard to enter. Just if you're watching this video, you haven't subscribed, hit the like button and then hit the subscribe button.
All right. Yeah, you heard Roger. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, and then turn on notifications. That way you can stay up to date for all the content that we're going to drop, whether it's player interviews, weekly episodes, or our lives. Be sure to follow us on social media. That way you can stay up to date on all that information as well. And we'll see you for the next one.
This episode has been brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here.